West Virginia is recognized.
Mr. President, I rise to speak about an honorable...
Senate is currently in a quorum call.
Suspend the quorum call.
Without objection.
Mr. President, I rise to speak about an honorable, dedicated public servant and a good friend who was from West Virginia who we lost last month on October the 29th. Lloyd G. Jackson was a true West Virginian, born in our southern coal fields in a small town in Lincoln County on May 30th, 1918. Throughout his 93 years, Lloyd Jackson always answered the call of service, whether it was for our great nation or for the beautiful people of West Virginia. Lloyd is a type of person who was well thought of by everyone who met him. From my own personal experience with Lloyd, I can say that I had the utmost respect for his humanitarian approach to every problem, most importantly for his professionalism. Lloyd's love for country and deep commitment to public service started when he was a young man and enlisted in the United States Army in 1941 during World War II. Before he left the military, Lloyd rose to the rank of Master Sergeant. After returning from the war, Lloyd's commitment to his beloved family and public service continued. He pursued and expanded his family's oil and gas business, and through his business he created good-paying jobs and touched the lives of countless West Virginians. In 1946, he was elected to serve in the West Virginia State Senate, representing his home region of Boone, Lincoln, and Logan counties. That same year, a man well known to this body, Senator Robert C. Byrd, was elected to the West Virginia House of Delegates and joined Lloyd Jackson in the West Virginia Senate in 1950. The two became lifelong friends. For nearly 25 years, Lloyd Jackson represented the people of the southern part of our state with the utmost distinction. Lloyd was known for his leadership qualities as a state senator, and he took an active role in national legislative organizations like the National Council of State Legislators and the Council of State Governments. His peers recognized his leadership abilities and made him president of the West Virginia Senate. As Senate President, Lloyd demonstrated true characteristics of a dedicated public servant: leadership, passion, commitment, and persistence. Lloyd G. Jackson will forever be remembered for his many years of unwavering service to the mountain state and its people. However, Lloyd will also be remembered for his passion and dedication to his community and for touching the lives of so many. He was a faithful member of the Central United Methodist Church in Hamlin. Lloyd was a loving husband of nearly 63 years to Pauline and a caring father of two children, Suzanne Rabin of Eugene, Oregon, and Lloyd II of Hamlin, West Virginia, and a proud grandfather of Lloyd III of Hamlin and Ryan of Palo Alto, California. Gail and I are keeping his wife Pauline and the entire Jackson family in our hearts and prayers. While we know that Lloyd Jackson is gone, his legacy of public service and compassion for the people of West Virginia will live in our hearts forever. Thank you, Mr. President, and I yield the floor. I notice the absence of a quorum.
Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Akaka. Mr. President. Mr. President, I rise today. I want to talk about four amendments
The Senate's currently in a quorum.
I would move that we suspend the quorum call.
Without objection.
And I want to talk about the four amendments that I've filed on this bill. And I'll just say right up front, they're also, all four are supported by my Missouri colleague, Senator McCaskill, so they're bipartisan amendment. Two of them would deal with a property ownership issue created by an infringement by federal regulators, by FERC. They both deal with a private power generating dam that was built in 1931. It created a lake called the Lake of the Ozarks, and over the years, private property owners have constructed literally thousands of homes that on this map beside me are impacted. The houses are the red dots, the other areas, and there are thousands of buildings of one kind or another on a lake that is one of the most used lakes in the country. And some people go to those houses on the weekend, and a lot of people live there all the time. This is, Mr. President, their home. Since the 1950s, the Lake of the Ozarks has been the most visited lake by boaters in the Midwest. It's a lake that's not owned by the federal government. Tourism at this lake totals about $200 million annually. Because of this tourist industry, there's lots of private investment. In 2004, Ameren Electric, that is the current owner of the lake, it was built again in the 30s by Union Electric, that later became Ameren Electric. They applied to FERC to renew their license to generate power at Bagnell Dam, which is the dam that was built to impound the water that created the Lake of the Ozarks. This application also made sure that virtually all of the homes and structures would no longer be subject to the Federal Electric Regulatory Commission. But FERC rejected this request. The result has been a back and forth between Ameren and FERC and the property owners for the past 7 years. This finger pointing by everybody involved except the property owners, who just simply think they own the property, has been nothing short of outrageous, and it's left property values, businesses, tourism, tax revenues, and jobs in question. FERC has taken its role too far. FERC is acting like they're the Corps of Engineers, and somehow the taxpayers of America own this property instead of the taxpayers who actually are the individual taxpayers that own the property. Every acre of land covered by water taxes have been paid, property taxes have been paid on that land since the first dream that this lake would be created. So 80 years of taxpayer money. This is not a Corps of Engineers lake where the Corps of Engineers can say, we own the lake, we own the shoreland, we're going to decide what you're going to do. But FERC has taken its role too far, and it's engaging in a pattern of enforcing shoreline management rules. So my First Amendment would simply modify the Federal Power Act by changing the definition of what could be considered a project purpose. Currently, FERC recognizes public recreational use of land, but not private ownership. Now, we wouldn't say they could no longer recognize public recreational use of land, but we would say that they have to recognize private ownership. You know, if FERC at a lake like this can decide access to the land, why can't FERC or some other federal agency drive by a farmer's farm and say, well, that's a nice pond out there. I'll bet it's got some fish in it. Why don't we just ensure that everybody that wants to have access to that farmer's pond has access to that farmer's pond? Maybe I shouldn't suggest that. Maybe some federal agency just heard that and said, oh, that's a good idea. It's water. It's pleasant. People could enjoy it. Everybody ought to be able to enjoy it, just like the people that have built the pond and own the property and do their work. My amendment would stop FERC from putting the Commission's policy preferences above those of ratepayers and private landowners in licensing this dam. My second amendment would simply just redraw the boundaries of the Lake of the Ozarks to reflect the 662-foot contour as necessitated by changing water levels over the past 80 years. It would limit FERC's ability to issue an order to remove structures in what they now consider a project boundary until that boundary has been more finely settled. It would limit FERC's ability to reject applications as long as power generation is still preserved. You know, the purpose of FERC is to see that a power generating dam generates power. It's not to control everything that is behind that dam. That is not the job of FERC. And in fact, let me leave those two amendments with a few stories of Missouri homeowners that have shared their stories with me about how FERC and FERC's actions are affecting their lives. This is a 30-year-old house that these homeowners have paid property taxes on for 30 years. In fact, if you can see this large pine tree in front of this house, it was a seedling when they started paying property taxes. And that's a big tree. And they paid property taxes the whole time. It is their first home. It's their only home. And they've been informed that they are within the Bagnell Dam boundary, meaning they risk losing their house. In fact, it's one of 17 homes in this subdivision facing the same problem. In another home, Fred and Barbara Lothrop purchased this home 15 years ago. It was built 35 years ago. So, Mr. President, these are not new homes that somebody has just put on this property in the last couple of years, and FERC's come in and say, oh, you made a mistake. This is a 35-year-old home that the current owners have lived in for 15 years. Barbara shared this with me on Facebook. She said, we've been paying taxes and upkeep on our homes, and new homes have been built around us within the last 2 years with permits and titles. These homes are not cabins. A majority of people live here year-round. We have our money invested in these properties in good faith when we brought them. This is according to the owner. When we brought them going through the right procedures and thinking you are a property owner for over 16 years, then being told your deed isn't worth the paper it's written on is something you can't understand how this can happen in the USA. Please really feel bullied. This is the Facebook note continued. Really feel bullied by the FERC agency and Ameren. We owe it to the citizens involved here to see that the federal government doesn't come in and just simply take their property. It's not fair. Imagine you get a new job somewhere. This is your home. You can't sell the home and buy to a new home because FERC suddenly decided after 16 years of paying taxes that your land is not owned by you, even though the county tax collectors thought it's been owned by you the whole time. Now, let me discuss quickly the other two amendments that deal with flood control. The Missouri and the Mississippi River have both been impacted dramatically by flooding this year. In Holt County alone, there was an astonishing 165,000 acres underwater, most of it for 3 and 4 months. In Bird's Point, in the Boot Heel in Missouri, another 130,000 additional acres of farmland underwater. So in total, we had over 400,000 acres, 600 square miles, something about the size of the entire state of Rhode Island, underwater during parts of this year. Vital transportation corridors have been closed, highways washed out, businesses shut down, and people have been dealing with this now for months. My first amendment, amendment number 976, cuts the bureaucratic red tape if all you're doing is putting back something that was there before the flood. If you're rebuilding a levee, if you're putting back things that were there before the flood, to rebuild levees or locks or dams that were damaged by the flood, you should just be able to do it. You shouldn't have to go through all kinds of studies to decide if the levee that you're putting back right like it was and where it was can be there again. This is the only chance we have to get these structures back in place before the 2012 flooding season starts. And of course, the 2012, it wouldn't have to be a flood this size to create great problems if the levee's already gone. And so that's what that amendment would do, Mr. President. It gives the Corps the tools they need to restore flood protection to the 2011 levels, hopefully before the 2012 runoff season begins. And then my second and the fourth amendment I want to talk about, amendment number 975, restricts funding of the Missouri River Fish and Wildlife Recovery Program to $22 million. Now, this still leaves a lot of money for that program, but it takes the other money that's been available for that program all year and makes it available to meet the critical flood control crisis. We've already spent more than $616 million on that program. This is essentially a program that is one of the big projects is that the government buys land from willing sellers who want to let it become more of a wetland, a wildlife preserve, something like that. I'm not saying that willing sellers shouldn't be able to do that, but I'm saying for right now, $22 million, not something more like $72 million, is enough. In fact, we've had citizens in some of these counties call the Corps and to be told truthfully, no, we don't have sufficient funds to restore the flood protection you're eligible to, but we could buy your farm. Now just imagine if you're on the other end of that call and you're a family farm and you're making a call, what can you do about the levee? What can you do to get our flood protection back? And they say, well, we can't do anything about the levee, but we could buy your farm. So if you want to go back to the kitchen table and decide if you just want to sell out, the taxpayers of America have plenty of money to buy your farm, but no, we don't have money to restore the levee that was protecting your farm just a few days ago. Mr. President, it's not acceptable. That's why Senator McCaskill and I are co-sponsoring all four of these amendments. We recognize that these issues are critically important in our state. And in fact, in the Missouri River, the last two amendments, they're critically important in the 7 states that start in Montana and end in St. Louis, Missouri, that are impacted by flooding in all 7 of those states this year. I hope we are able to consider these amendments, and I hope my colleagues will join me in trying to do the right thing for the people that we're sent here to work for. And I would yield back and suggest that we may not have a quorum.
Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Akaka. unanimous consent that Adam Christensen, a congressional science fellow,
The
I
quorum
ask
call
that
is
the
in
quorum call
process
be vitiated. Thank you very much.
without objection.
I ask unanimous consent that Adam Christensen, a congressional science fellow assigned to my office, be granted floor privileges during consideration of this bill.
Without objection.
Thank you very much. Mr. President, I note the absence of a quorum.
Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Akaka.
Thank you.